Sound check one, presenter, June 23rd. We'll just pretend it's the first one. Sound check one, presenter. Sound check 1 presenter, June 23rd. Sound check 1 presenter. Sound check 3, presenter, June 23rd. You're hearing me? Okay. Sound check 3, presenter, June 23rd. Sound check 4, presenter, June 23rd. Sound check 4, presenter. And sound check clerk, June 23rd. Sound check 4 for clerks, June 23rd.
Council meeting on this June the 23rd. I would like to acknowledge that we are situated on the traditional territory of the Erie, Neutral, Huron-Wendat, Haudenosaunee, and Mississaugas. This land is covered by the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Belt Covenant, which was an agreement between the Haudenosaunee, Anishinaabe to share and care for the resources around the Great Lakes. We further acknowledge that this land is covered by the Between the Lakes Purchase, 1792, between the Crown and the Mississauga of the Credit First Nation. And today, the city of Hamilton is home to many Indigenous people from across Turtle Island, North America, and we recognize that we must do more to learn about the rich history of this land so that we can better understand our roles as residents, neighbors, partners, and caretakers. Members of the public are advised that our meetings are webcast live by the City of Hamilton and temporarily archived on the city's website as well. A reminder that all electronic devices are to be on a non-audible function during our meeting, and we will institute the 5-minute rule as it relates to speaking time. And if you need more time, you can always come back onto the speakers list. So on all of that, quorum is present, Madam Clerk. Confirm that one more time.
Yes, we have quorum, Mr. Mayor.
Perfect, thank you. Can I turn to Madam Clerk for any changes to the agenda?
Yes, good morning. There are 3 added communication items. Item 4.10, correspondence from Viv Saunders respecting the Barton Street East 2 rural lanes widening at 5 urbanized vehicle lanes, with a recommendation to be received and referred to the General Manager of Public Works for appropriate action. We have item 4.11, correspondence from the Honorable Doug Downey, Attorney General, respecting an update on modernization initiatives and court recovery in Ontario's Provincial Offences Act courts, with a recommendation to be received and referred to the City Solicitor for appropriate action. We have item 4.12, correspondence from Rose Jansen and family respecting the Urban Indigenous Strategy time for meaningful action, with a recommendation to be received. There are 2 added notices of motion. Item 7.1, support for the issuance of a manufacturer's limited liquor sales license by the Glass for Carlisle Cider Company. And item 7.2, peer review of land needs assessment methodology. Those are all the changes for today.
All right, thank you. Could I have a motion to approve the agenda as amended? Moved by Councillor Paul, seconded by Councillor Ferguson. Thank you. Any comments or questions on the agenda? Not seeing any. Thank you. Electronic vote, please.
Mr. Mayor, I perhaps need to do a thumbs up on this particular vote, but I will be attached to Cisco soon.
Great.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for that. Appreciate it. Anyone else?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I can't, my vote's not coming up. It says voting in progress, so
Okay.
I just hit F5, but maybe the clerk needs to clear me.
All right.
Yeah, same with
But
me.
thumbs up.
Okay.
Yeah, same here, Mr. Mayor. The vote is not coming up. Thumbs up.
Thank you.
And I voted in the chat.
And that carries 15-0, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. And any declarations of interest? Not seeing any. Thank you very much. Can I have a motion to approve the minutes of June the 9th, 2021? Moved by Councillor Wilson, or you have a comment on the minutes? Thank you. Councillor Wilson, go ahead. Let me get it on the floor first of all. Moved by Councillor Farr, seconded by Councillor Johnson. Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It was actually a declaration of interest.
Okay, let's do that now.
Thank you. Planning Committee, item 7. My husband is the CEO and president of the Hamilton Community Foundation, and in this particular case with item 7, HCF has provided a loan to Trillium Housing, and Trillium Housing is the party identified in the report, who then manage a second mortgage pool for low to moderate income first-time home buyers. So out of an abundance of caution, I will declare an interest and recuse myself from that matter. Thank you.
So we will call that out on a separate vote when we get to that item to allow you to abstain. So Madam Clerk, if you'll remind me when we get there, we'll do that. Any other declarations, just in case? Okay. Back to the minutes. So it's been moved and seconded. Any issues with the minutes? Hearing none, I'll take a motion to approve, done by Thank you. Everyone able to vote? Anyone need to do a thumbs up?
And that carries, Mr. Mayor.
Perfect. Everybody's in. It's great. On the communications, Councillor Farr, a motion to put the communications on the floor, please.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor, and that's moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Jackson.
Great, thank you. Any items in communications that members would wish to speak to? I'll turn it over to Councillor Farr in a minute, but Councillor Pearson, I saw your hand up, so go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. My apologies. That's what happens. You try and do three things at once. Items of communication, certainly supportive. I just wanted to state, I think there was item 410 was from Viv Saunders. That item issue has already been directed to Margaret Fazio, who is the senior planner or engineer overlooking this Barton EA from Fruitland Road to 50 Road. So I just wanted to put that on record. So it is being addressed and she will receive a response. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Councillor Farr, should you take the chair for a moment? I wanted to address item 4.9, which I'm pleased to see is recommended to be endorsed, and it is a private member's bill from Peter Julian, MP, federal, seeking endorsement for a motion to prevent the sale of anti-hate crimes and incidents private bill to permit the sale of hate symbols on articles or equipment, hate symbols like KKK or others. Would be, I think, if this bill is passed, would be something that would be prohibited in our broader community. And I personally think it's the right step to take, certainly in the current environment, but always, that, allowing people to note these kinds of symbols that denote hate and division and discrimination in our community, I think is fully inappropriate. And I think this direction that they're putting forward is fully appropriate. So I'm glad to see that it's being endorsed, and I certainly endorse it as well. So I'm happy with the recommendation, but just wanted to highlight it to ensure that people are aware that this MP private members bill is coming forward, hopefully passed before they shut down their session, which is happening imminently. Thank you, Councillor Farr. I'll take the chair back. Any other comments on communications? Not seeing any. Thank you. On the communications then, all in favor? Or any opposed?
That carries 15-0, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much. And Councillor Farr, for a motion to move into a committee of the whole, please.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. And seconded by Councillor Jackson that we move into committee of the whole to consider the committee reports.
Perfect. Thank you. All in favor? Electronic vote. Everyone's able to vote so far. That's great.
That carries 15-0.
Thank you. I'm going to turn to item 5.1, which is a committee report. Hamilton Enterprise Holding Corporation shareholder report. Councillor Farr, a motion to put it on the floor, please.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That is moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Tom Jackson that the Hamilton Enterprises Holding Corporation Shareholder Report 21-001, being the meeting held Thursday, June 10th, 2021, be received and the recommendations contained therein be approved.
All right, thank you. Any items in that report that anyone would like to discuss? Not seeing any. We'll go right to the vote then. Thank you. Councillor Collins approves 5.1 and the balance of your vote. Submit. Thank you.
We're just waiting for Councillor Partridge's to come through.
Okay, thumbs up from
She's
Councillor
thumbs up.
Partridge in the meantime. Thanks.
That's 15-0.
Thank you.
Carried.
Councillor Farr, once again, the Hamilton Utilities Corporation shareholder report. Motion to put it on the floor.
Seconded by Councillor Ferguson, that the Hamilton Utilities Corporation Shareholder Report 21-001, being the meeting held Thursday, June 10th, 2021, be received and the recommendations contained therein be approved.
Great, thank you. Any items in that report that anyone would like to lift or discuss? Not seeing anything. Thank you. On that report then, all in favor? Approves in the chat. Anyone else need to do a thumbs up or down? All good, great, thank you.
And that is carried 15-0.
Thank you very much. We're going to turn to the Board of Health now. Councillor Wilson, a motion to put the Board of Health report on the floor, please.
That the Board of Health Report 21-006, being the meeting held on Monday, June 14th, 2021, be received and the recommendations contained therein be approved. It's moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Pauls.
Okay, thank you. Any comments or questions on the Board of Health report? Not seeing any, thank you. To the motion then, all in favor? Or
We have
opposed?
2 speakers, Mr. Mayor, sorry.
Sorry,
Councillor Jackson and Councillor Wilson.
Okay, thank you. Are you putting them in the chat so I'm aware? No, they are. Okay, thank
They
you.
just waved. We will put them in though.
Very good, thanks. Councillor Jackson.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. My microphone did turn red, at least from East 44th. But anyways, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just through you, Mr. Mayor, to Dr. Richardson, I think it's just timely, being a Board of Health report, and given some changes that have occurred with the vaccinations and the supplies and what's here. Obviously, Pfizer not, what isn't here and what is here. And maybe Dr. Richardson can just give our community an update as to where the vaccination, the whole status of the vaccination issue stands. Mr. Mayor, through you, please.
Great, thank you.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, indeed. Thank you, Councillor, for the opportunity to speak to it. So as a Delta variant community, we got early access to eligibility for those vaccinated between May 10th and 30th. And so that opened up this morning on our system. There's about 102,000 people who fall into that particular group. And yesterday we did upload an additional 45,000 appointments onto the provincial system to accommodate bookings. We've heard this morning that things are going well in that regard. Of course, that there are additional vaccine supplies that are going through our pharmacy colleagues as well as our primary care colleagues. So we're very happy that we're moving forward apace with these second shots given the Delta variant. We will be opening up sometime next week. We're waiting on the provincial announcement for all those who are 18 and over to have ability to book for their next shots, and we'll continue to upload appointments as soon as we're able to match them up with the vaccine. I know there's been some discussion about vaccine interchangeability, and we're certainly still hearing people talk about this issue and asking questions about the issue. Just to remind everybody that the advice is to consider those 2 vaccines, the 2 mRNA vaccines, whether it's Pfizer's or Moderna's, as interchangeable. And people are advised to take the first dose of vaccine that they can get, whether that is for their first dose or for their second dose. And it's perfectly fine and safe to have a different dose for each of those 2 doses, a different vaccine. On the AstraZeneca front as well, it's now preferred that people for their second dose get the mRNA vaccine, and that can be either Pfizer or Moderna as their second dose. But indeed, if people have already gotten their first and second doses of AstraZeneca, they're very well protected, as we're seeing from the data that's coming out of the UK. So we're also been going quickly through our youth group, which is we're in the second week of our youth weeks today and this week, and we're over 55% vaccinated amongst that population as well. So that's progressing along quite well as well. That's it from me, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Jackson.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, thank you, Dr. Richardson, for your clear and reassuring comments. And Dr. Richardson, although you can't speak for the supplier, my supplementary question is, do you know what happened with the Pfizer supply? Has it been stuck in some shipyard off the Atlantic or Pacific coast? Is it that the company so popular Many people I've talked to all talk about love to get a Pfizer, Tom, love to get a Pfizer. I think that's the very first one. I'd like to get the second one as well, keep it the same. Any idea what's happened and what you've heard through your network as to when that supply will be coming back to the city? And that's my last question, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we've not heard anything in specific in terms of what's happened with Pfizer. We do hear that they are absolutely going to meet their contracts. It's just going to be a little bit later in the month that they do come through. Pfizer, of course, is very important to us because it's still the only vaccine that we can use in those that are 12 to 17 years of age. And so that is who we're reserving the Pfizer vaccine for as we move forward with that group. And then Moderna vaccine is being used more widely. And we're very glad to say that that supply had been short for a period of time and has now been quite plentiful.
Dr. Richardson, thank you. And Dr. Richardson, please convey to the wonderful staff and those that are looking after the First Ontario Centre, all I've heard from all of my constituents that have attended that site, Mr. Mayor, nothing but praise and applause for the smooth operation, and people that are receiving my constituents are saying how personable and welcoming and reassuring they are to provide any calm and to let my constituents know that all will be well, although ultimately it is the individual's choice. But please convey my appreciation, Dr. Richardson. Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My question is with respect to item number 1 in the Board of Health report, specifically 1B, and through you to the Dr. Elizabeth. I had to leave for a medical appointment just as this debate was commencing. So I'm seeking some clarification on the direction that is given, just so I understand it, along with what because it's in bold, I take there was an amendment made to the original. So if I could ask, what would an educational session on the topic of governance include? And what does structural options mean? Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Dr. Elizabeth.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So we'll be engaging with somebody who is an expert in governance and going over what they would recommend be covered in this. We'll be talking about the issues that were brought up through the course of not only the years that have led up to the discussions about public health governance overall, but also the issues that led to it being brought back to this committee or to the Board of Health as a committee for discussion. So those include issues around equity and how diversity and governance is an important issue and those sorts of things. In terms of structural options for the Board of Health, many of those were reviewed in the report in terms of the current structures of boards of health in Ontario, and then look at what other, based on the input from this governance expert, what other sort of options could be considered from a governance perspective.
Thank you. Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Dr. Elizabeth, very much. I'm glad to hear that it won't strictly be just a look at governance models, but the necessary inclusion of the why, which frankly I did not see reflected in the report, but that was brought forward from concerns and comments from all of the delegates, particularly and including medical practitioners who identified the fundamental role of lived experience. So we know from H1N1, and we know again from COVID, because it's been acknowledged by Canada's Chief Medical Officer of Health and the province of Ontario and the city of Hamilton, that the impact of this pandemic has been uneven, and that age, race, income have played a key factor and therefore needed to inform how we responded. And I think governance and ensuring that lens, that practice, that lived experience, so that we can immediately see the policy and the impact through that practiced lived lens is fundamentally important because as you know, Mr. Mayor, Dr. King Jr. said, in the absence of health equity, there is no justice. Health equity outcomes and health equity itself is fundamental to just outcomes. So I'm very much looking forward to this report. I'm very much looking forward to this session, but I'm particularly looking forward to heeding the input that we received from those delegates and why they were telling us what they did. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. I see no further speakers on the Board of Health report. So we'll go to a vote. So all in favor of the report as a whole? Basically amounts to one item. And everyone's able to vote. I see everybody has. That's good. Thank you.
And that carries 15-0.
Great. Very much. I'm going to turn to the Public Works Committee report. Councillor Vanderbeek, a motion to put it on the floor, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I need to make an amendment to item number 3. Should I do that beforehand or should I put it on the floor first?
No, you should put it on the floor and then we'll go to your amendment.
Okay. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Nan that the Public Works Committee report 21-008, being the meeting held Monday, June 14th, 2021, be received and the recommendations contained therein be approved.
Okay, thank you. And then you had an amendment. So on the item, which item?
Item number 3.
Thank you. Go ahead.
So this is item number 3 of, and I just want to double check this. It says of the Public Works Committee report 19-014, respecting a proposed underground tunnel. So it may not be item number 3 on this agenda, is it? Can someone check that, please?
No, this one is enhanced inspection and monitoring Hamilton Water Wastewater.
Councillor
Item
Vanderbeek,
6.4.
Councillor Vanderbeek, yeah, your motion is item 6.4 on the agenda.
Right, I see it here.
Yep,
Item
no problem.
6.4. So it'll be an amendment to item 3 of the Public Works Committee report 19-014, respecting a proposed underground tunnel under Concession Road 4 West, Flamborough, which is PW 19082. Madam Clerk, do I need to read this or does everyone have a copy of this?
So that'll be, we'll be handling that in item under motions in item 6.4. So we don't need to do that during the report at this time.
So,
because that item number that you're speaking to, that report does not lie within the PW report that's on the floor right now.
okay.
Item 6.4 is identified as a amending motion by you.
Oh, I see it. I do see it here.
when
I'm
it comes
sorry.
up
I
on the agenda.
misunderstood.
So when we get the motions, we will come to you and then you can make your amendment.
Well, that will work perfectly. I just misunderstood.
No problem.
Okay, so I don't have anything further to say then about this report other than my motion to approve it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And now any other items in the report that folks would like to highlight? Not seeing any indication, Madam Clerk, all clear? Thank you. All in favor of the report then? Are those opposed? Electronically? When it comes up, and there it is.
And that carries 15-0.
And we're going to turn to the Planning Committee report. Councillor Danko, a motion please to put it on the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Johnson, that the Planning Committee report 21-010, being the meeting held on Tuesday, June the 15th, 2021, be received and the recommendations contained therein be approved.
Great, thank you. Any issues in the Planning Committee report that folks would like to lift and discuss? Councillor Johnson, I saw your hand go up. Go ahead.
I believe that there's an amendment that the staff would like to make, and it's on 6.3 for 3311 Homestead Drive. So it's been amended. It's moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Jackson. This is a housekeeping amendment, and it's for the environmental remediation and site enhancement erase redevelopment grant application 3311 Homestead Drive, ERG 1803, PED 20125, Ward 11, and this is the item 6.1.
Yep.
So go ahead.
Councillor Johnson, That's a motion that'll be dealt with immediately following planning.
Again,
I must have got the same notes that Counselor Vanderbeek got.
I'm sorry,
Yeah.
I listed them in the order in the email. Sorry about that.
So it's,
My apologies, Mr. Mayor. I will repeat all this afterwards.
you got it. It's item 6.3, just before Councillor Vanderbeek does hers, you can, we come to you for this amendment, so. On the planning committee report as it stands, any issues, any comments?
Mr. Mayor, Councillor Wilson had requested we pull item 7 for a
Thank you.
separate vote.
Right, so let's do that now. So on item 7 as a standalone, all in favor or opposed or abstaining?
That carries 14-0.
Thank you. Any balance of the report? All in favor then?
That carries 15-0.
Thank you. And the General Issues Committee report, item 5.6. Councillor Farr, a motion to put it on the floor, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and that's seconded by Councillor Jackson. And that the General Issues Committee Report 21-013, being the meeting held Wednesday, June 16th, 2021, will be received and the recommendations contained therein be approved.
Great, thank you.
Excuse me, Mr. Mayor, in the change of the agenda, we had reordered things, so item 6.3 has to be dealt with before 5.6. This
Okay,
is where we're dealing with the amendment from Councillor Johnson
right.
to item 1 of the General Issues Committee report.
Okay, thank you then. So now you've got me confused. So I thought we were doing it in motions. Now we're doing it directly after the Planning Committee report, and it's part of the General Issues Committee report. So now, before we vote on the General Issues Committee report, we're going to entertain an amendment. Have I got it all right?
Sorry, so, okay. I'll let Janet jump in.
Mr. Mayor, item 6.3 is respecting the Erase Redevelopment Grant application at 3311 Homestead Drive.
Right.
And there is an item within the General Issues Committee report that reflects that same item. However, this amendment has to be done prior to item number 14 being approved in the General Issues Committee report. So when we went through the changes to the agenda, we amended the agenda to deal with 6.3 prior to general issues so that we have the amendments in the correct order.
I'll go with the flow on that one. I'm not necessarily understanding the logic, but notwithstanding, Councillor Johnson, put your item 6.3 amendment forward, and then we'll deal with the GIC report.
Mr. Mayor, I am so glad you're as confused as I am. So folks, just as I said earlier, it's moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Jackson, that the Environmental Remediation and Site Enhancement Erase Redevelopment Grant application for 3311 Homestead Drive, ERG 1803, PED 20125, Ward 11, item 6.1 in the General Issues Committee minutes. And this is housekeeping that once we've approved it at GIC, then it gets amended to include things like the mayor and the city clerk be authorized, etc. So it's 6 pages long, folks. If you want, I can read the entire thing, but just out of respect for all of you and all of our confusion, I've read it over and I'm supportive.
Okay, perfect. Anyone have any issues with item 6.3 as amendment? Seeing none, all in favor of the amendment? Any opposed? Anyone abstaining? And then we'll go back to the GIC report. And just to clarify then, Madam Clerk, we will be doing the GIC report as amended at this point because we've now amended an item in the report, correct?
No, just the report as presented.
Okay. I'm still confused.
And that carries 15.
Right, thank you. Councillor Johnson, I saw your hand up.
Yes, I'd just like to pull item 15 for a separate vote, please. Thank you.
Thank you. On the committee report, so item, Councillor Partridge, I see your hand up.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. And yeah, I think item 15 as well as the MOU for the LRT. Is that correct? Because it's also on page 8 and then on page 17 and on page 2 of the report. So I wasn't sure.
I think we're in the wrong report. Madam Clerk, where are we at in this report?
So this is the GIC report, and it's the
Yep.
memorandum of understanding for the LRT. I just want to be opposed to that, and so I'd like to. I don't know if I need to have it lifted or where it is.
Madam Clerk, could you clarify that for us? We have, I think, 3 items that were approved at committee. The item 4, item 5. Where is the item relative to the MOU?
So on page 8, it's item 15
In the information section.
in the information section. So do we need to lift that? I just want to make sure my vote is opposed is recorded.
So as I understand it, this was direction given to staffs, and that's why it's in the information section, but it could be lifted and brought
Yes,
forward
please.
for a separate vote. So you're moving that?
So,
Yes,
Mr.
please.
Mayor, sorry, Councillor Partridge, 15A speaks to the draft MOU.
Right.
I'm not
Well,
certain
that's
if
what I'm
that's what you
asking,
were.
because I'm confused. It's in a couple of places. I just want to vote opposed to it, and I want it recorded, please.
Okay,
And
so
Councillor
15A.
Johnson may have been doing the same.
So 15A speaks that staff be directed to meet with Metrolinx, the Ministry of Transportation, and other governmental entities as required to prepare a memorandum of understanding for the Hamilton Light Rail Transit Project and report back to the General Issues Committee as soon as possible with a draft MOU.
Correct. So
is it all of?
Yeah,
Is it
so it's
all
all
of
of that. Yes,
So is it 15A in particular or all of 15?
all of 15, please.
Okay.
And I believe Councillor Johnson was looking to do the same, so she'll second that if I need to move and second it, please.
You do, and it's moved and seconded, so it's on the floor at this point. Any comments or questions to lift that?
So the motion is
just
to
on the-
lift it. That's what we're voting on, is to lift it.
To lift it, correct. Councillor Jackson, any issues on lifting?
Mr. Mayor, I'm on the same page with the previous 2 speakers, but it's an item in the agenda. So I thought, like we've done before, Mr. Mayor, we just want to have a separate vote on item 15. That's all. Nothing about lifting or anything. We just want to have a separate vote, correct?
And we're lifting it so that we can have a separate vote.
Well, you just merged all those thoughts together nicely, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, sorry, Mr. Mayor, we don't need to do a motion to lift because it's not contained within the information section, so we can pull for a separate vote.
Okay,
Thank you.
perfect. All right.
Well, I'm glad that I offered my own 2 cents as well then, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
And I am as well, because I just was confused on just what the process should be. Thank you.
I think the order of the day is confused, at least for some of us, maybe not for our good clerks who know exactly what they're doing, but we're all catching up. So on item 15, as a separate vote's been requested, let's deal with that, up front. Any comments or questions? If not, it's been moved and seconded. No, it's not moved and seconded. A separate vote's been requested. All in favor of item
So,
15?
Mr. Mayor, we do have Councillor Clark on the speakers list. I'm not sure if he's speaking to the report or item 15.
I don't know either, but I'll ask. Councillor Clark.
Good morning, sir. And I would like to briefly speak to item 15.
Okay.
As I indicated in the last meeting, once this council makes the decision to move forward with LRT, I will work as the Ward 9 councillor to ensure success of the project to the best of my ability, what limited abilities I may have in that regard in setting up a train system. I do have concerns, but I raised my objections at the last meeting and made it clear that the majority of people in my ward from the canvassing that I've done still have concerns and are opposed to LRT. So I voted against it at the GIC. I will vote against it today. The next meeting that comes back will be the MOU, and I'm advised, Mr. Mayor, to the best of our staff's ability, that the MOU will virtually be the same as the one that was already approved by council. Is that not correct? Did I interpret that accurately?
You could ask Jeanette. That is my understanding. Now,
Yeah.
would it be
Just
identical
to
every way?
confirm, sir.
I can confirm that it would virtually be the same.
That was what I was told also.
Right.
And so once, as I said, and once council has made its very clear democratic decision to move forward with this, I'm not keen on maintaining any acrimony or divisions on it. I think at that point forward, once the majority vote is taken, it's our role as councillors to try to make that project a success. So I will continue to oppose today's motion, but at the next meeting coming forward, if the MOU is ostensibly exactly the same, then from that point forward, I would support LRT with the rest of the majority of my council colleagues. And finally, sir, I do want to, I know I said it at the GIC meeting, but I think it's important that we acknowledge your advocacy in securing a record amount of funding for this project. As you know, when we first talked about it, I didn't think the feds were going to come on stream. And it was your advocacy and the help of staff that actually made that happen. So I want to acknowledge that and thank you for that work, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Appreciate the kind words. Thank you. And there was a group effort for sure. And we appreciate everyone's effort on this one. Councillor Pearson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was way back when Councillor Partridge was speaking. I too will vote against item 15, which is technically the motion. Items 4 and 5 were just with regards to LRT, and it was receipt of report. So I'm okay with those, but it's just item 15. Thank you, sir, for the clarification.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Ferguson.
And just for clarity, Mr. Mayor, I think there will be a significant change to the MOU in that it's no longer a design, build, finance, operate. It's going to be broken up into smaller pieces and not using that delivery model, which is great news for local contractors because they don't have to have bonding for 3.4 billion just for the value of the work that they specialize in. So I think it's good news for the local employees because they'll now be able to bid on the parts where they have expertise, for example, sewer and water main. So I suspect the MOU will have to be adjusted for that, but apart from that, I'm still very supportive as the motion that's presented before us today.
Great, thank you. And just to clarify, I mean, there may be nuance changes in this, but I think who's responsible for what is principally the same scenario that was on the table through the previous MOU. And it might include, a couple of variations in terms of how they're going to do it, but in terms of who's responsible for what, I anticipate no major changes. On item 15, all in favor? And any opposed? No one abstaining that I'm aware. All votes are in, Madam Clerk?
Almost. And that carries 9-6.
Thank you. Balance of the GIC report. Councillor Danko, go ahead, sir.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, could I just request a separate vote on item 12? It's the RBC open.
Yep. Thank you. Item 12 is the potential for major events in 2024. Thank you. So a separate vote's been requested. All in favor then? Any opposed? Can indicate. Councillor Collins approves item 12 in the chat.
We're just waiting for Councillor Pauls to go through. She's thumbs up.
It's got a thumbs up. Yep. Thank you.
That carries 11-4.
And on the balance of the GIC report then, all in favor?
Councillor Ferguson is trying to get our attention.
Okay, Councillor Ferguson.
Yeah, I just like a separate vote on item 11. I just have trouble showing priority to certain trades, if you will. I think this could open Pandora's box for every trade's going to want to make sure that there's a fair wage. We have a fair wage component now into our contracts, but I'm just worried you open up Pandora's box. So I'd like a separate vote in 11 so I can oppose it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So separate vote requested on it. Then all in favor or opposed?
That carries 14-1.
Okay, thank you. Now on the balance of the other items in the report. If not, we'll take the balance of the report and take your vote. All in favor? Anyone opposed? Vote is up.
That carries 15-0.
And through the uprights. Perfect. Thank you. Item 5.7, Councillor Ferguson.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So it's moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Pearson, that the Audit, Finance, and Administration Committee Report 2110, in the meeting held on Thursday, June the 17th, be received and the recommendations contained therein be approved.
Thank you. Any items in that report folks would like to lift? Back to you, Councillor Ferguson. And
Yeah, I'd just like to raise item 5. This was the external audit that was presented to the AF&A committee on last week, and the lead auditor for KPMG was in to answer our questions, and he made a public statement that it was a clean audit with no issues. So I just want to publicly thank our finance staff, whether it's Mike and Cindy or Brian or Rick and all the rest of the finance staff. That's pretty amazing to have 0 issues on a $2 billion audit. So congratulations to them.
good point. Thank you for raising that. So on the balance of the excellent Audit and Finance Administration report, all in favor? And we can't say often enough, we have a fantastic finance team. And we appreciate all of their good work. Everyone's able to vote? Madam
That
Clerk?
carried 15-0.
Thank you. Item 5.8 is the Emergency Community Services Committee report. Councillor Nan, a motion to put it on the floor, please.
Certainly moved by myself and seconded by Vice Chair Councillor Tom Jackson that the Emergency Community Services Committee Report 21-007, being the meeting held on Thursday, June 17, 2021, be received and the recommendations contained therein be approved. Thanks.
Great, thank you. Any items in the report anyone would like to speak to? Councillor Pauls and Councillor, sorry, there is a speakers list, so my apologies. We'll add Councillor Pauls and Councillor Ferguson, I saw. Councillor Wilson, then Councillor Pauls. Councillor Wilson first.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have some questions with respect to, I believe it's item 4, and it is the arena, Mohawk 4-pad arena. Thank you.
Yep, go ahead.
Questions of clarification, so I clearly understand, if I could, through you to GM Johnson, I think. So if I understand the timeline, $245,000 was given to the private entity in 2020, and in 2021, and so the 200,000 was approved and given again. So 245,000 in 2020, and in 2021, 200,000 along with a $50,000 advance. So that's 495,000. Have I understood that correctly? That has been already secured by the private sector entity?
Through the mayor, that's my understanding. We do have Chris Hersteck from Recreation, our director, as well as Steve Savor, both of whom are more knowledgeable about this operating agreement. And throughout this, I think it's important to note that this is not a lease agreement that we're discussing. This is an operating agreement that has been longstanding in terms of operating the city's facility at the 4-pad. So just with that, I may ask Chris more so to take the lead on answering the questions, and Steve, as they're much more familiar with this long-standing contract. So Chris, I think I've got the first part right. Have I? And then I think I will have Chris answer more of the questions with Steve moving forward, if that's okay, Councillor.
Through the chair, that's correct, Paul. Good idea. Steve, the author of the report, as well as has the background for, you mean the last 10 years with the Hamilton Arena Partners and the Quad Pad agreement. Steve does have all the background and would be the best to answer the questions, Councillor.
Thank you very much. I will do so then. So when I was reading the report, if I could, through you, Mr. Mayor, to Chris or Steve, I was looking for a legal analysis to provide me with some counsel on our obligation to extend this money. Could someone offer that to me? Are we required under this agreement to do so? Or what are the risks in not?
Thank you. So Steve, are you answering those legal questions as well?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, Steve Sabor, Manager, Sports Services. I can provide information in terms of our discussions with our partners at Legal Services in terms of reviewing the operating agreement, and through their review, we do have parameters within that agreement that extends our support in terms of providing support in certain situations. This would be one of those situations in which Legal Services has provided recommendation in that regard.
Thank you. Councillor Wilson?
Thank you. So if I could understand that a little bit in greater depth, Legal Services has advised the corporation that we must do this because there is a risk in not doing so?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the request from Hamilton Arena Partners is a request to committee and council. At this point, there is no obligation. However, upon our recommendation and analysis of the situation, the facility, as has been mentioned, is a city-owned facility. It is operated by Hamilton Arena Partners, and through our analysis from a program level perspective, it does support the continuance of the operation of our facility, and through legal's a review of the operating agreement provided us some guidance in terms of what could or could not be done, and that's why the report was authored to committee to get some counsel in terms of direction from committee and council in regards to this request.
Yep. Councillor Wilson?
Thank you. So the Hamilton Arena Partnership has a cash flow issue. I'm just trying to understand the arena business. The cash flow issue is a consequence of the restrictions of play put out by pandemic. So I'm assuming that the asset itself has been relatively dormant. What kind of costs are being generated that would warrant an extension of $500,000? Thank you. Through you, Chair or Mayor.
Steve?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, in regards to the situation, Councillor Wilson has indicated that the facility has been closed in certain time periods due to the emergency closure. This is consistent with all of our facilities as well, our arena facilities that are and is really no different in terms of the expenditures that our own facilities incur and that our own facilities need to pay in terms of hydro, utilities, refrigeration, insurance, that we pay for our city-operated facilities. Again, to note that this facility, Mohawk 4 Ice Center, is a city facility. So in terms of having support for those operating expenses, those are what we're looking at and analyzing in terms of that support in the request.
Thank you. Councillor Wilson?
Thank you. I think I have two more questions, Mr. Mayor. The operating agreement itself states that the city will pay the Hamilton Arena Partners an annual management fee of $150,000 plus GST. Is that money been transferred and paid?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, that those funds have not been collected or dispersed to Hamilton Arena Partners. Again, through their due diligence in terms of the general manager at New Stadia and Hamilton Arena Partners, they have done a number of different things to try to mitigate the situation, from layoffs, staff layoffs, from reducing services, deferring management fees, as you just alluded to. So there's the request really goes specifically to the operating cost to run the arena, which is again no different from our facilities that we operate.
Okay, just one final question then. There are provisions within the agreement that require HAP to reimburse the city for any funds provided to deal with cash shortfalls. So is this one of those instances where this money is going to have to be reimbursed at some point? Through you, Mayor.
Yep.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Again, we do have provisions within the agreement that allow us as an entity, facility review management team to take a look at the annual expenditures and revenues, and at the end of the year provide some direction in terms of how that will be resolved at the end of the year. The situation that we have here is we're not fortunate enough to be at the end of the year. The cash flow issues are imminent, they're immediate, and they cannot be resolved at the end of the year at this point. So that is why we're looking at this request at this time. But there's always is an opportunity to take a look at the full expenditures at the end of the year and make the appropriate decisions in that regard.
Thank you. That's also, you indicated that was your last question. If you have more, you can come back on.
I will. Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you. I
She
have
could put me back on.
Councillors Pauls, Ferguson, and Jackson. Councillor Pauls.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to bring your attention to item 5, the Macassa Lodge redevelopment project financing plan. We can all agree that COVID has reinforced the need to make sure our seniors in our nursing homes are taken care of and have the best possible facilities. This is why we need to invest, improve, and update our facility, Macassa Lodge. We will have a total of 64 new and upgraded beds, 20 new beds sponsored by the province, which we roughly received $7 million investment. The D wing of Macassa Lodge has 44 beds. They will be upgraded to the highest standards. The total cost, including the $7 million from the province, is $19 million. Now, if you put that in perspective, over 25 years, it will be roughly $896,000 per year, averaging 0.0085 of our tax levy. We will continue to find ways where we can leverage some more funding from the province. I was reminded by the good Councillor Jackson, who has really been, Macassa has been in his ward for over 30 years, and with the new realignment, it's my ward now, that the province used to pay 50-50. So we will continue to pursue this funding. And I just want to make it aware if this is a must project that we must all support. And I was wondering if Holly's on the call, if make sure I got all my figures right, and she would like to confirm that.
Sorry, which colleague is that?
Holly Algiato. Oh, there she is.
Okay, thank you.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Jackson, Holly O'Dwardy, Senior Administrator, Macassa Lodge. Councillor Pauls, Councillor Pauls, the split between the province and our city would be an 80-20% split at this point in time, with roughly 5.7 coming from the Ministry of Long-Term Care.
Thank you. So I know Councillor Jackson probably would like to speak on this issue too, but I think this is a project that should support and move on, and we will try to get more funding from the province. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And let me apologize, because what I should have done was ask if there are any additional questions on the first item that we dealt with, so we can get that one taken care of. So now that we're on this one, I'll come back to the other. So anyone else on the Macassa Lodge funding financing issue? Not seeing any. Councillor Jackson, go ahead.
I think Councillor Farr was really waving both hands there, Mr. Mayor. If you could keep me on the list after him, please. Thank you.
Well, so you are on the speakers list. Is that for another item?
I'm actually on for 3 items today, Mr. Mayor. So which one one would you like to stay with right now, please?
Well, I want to stay with the Macassa Lodge.
Okay.
So that we can get that one wrapped up. Then I'm going to go back to the previous one, which is the arena issue, and then we'll get to others. So Councillor Farr on this one.
And then myself, please. And then myself. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
I should have brought this up at the start of the meeting, so my apologies in advance, but I think I'll probably declare a potential interest. I'm going to look into it further, but as you know, I recently had a very close family member become a resident at beautiful Macassa Lodge. I'm not certain if there's any interest here, but I definitely want to err on the side of caution. You know very well, Mr. Mayor, she's a big fan of yours, so I know I want to keep both myself and my mom out of trouble. So I'll just declare an interest, and I apologize again to you and the clerks for not bringing this up earlier in the meeting. Thanks.
No problem. Thank you. Councillor Jackson then on the same topic.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, thank you. Thank you, Councillor Pauls, for your wonderful passion and advocacy for this nearly $28 million renovation project plan that's before us here today, Mr. Mayor. And Mr. Mayor, I may talk for a fair bit of time, so if I go over the 5, just put me back on the list for Macassa, because I just feel so strongly about the 2 long-term care homes that are under the municipal umbrella. And want to thank Emergency Community Services Committee for the unanimous recommendation. Mr. Mayor, we can talk all we want about major projects like waterfront, airport, business parks, LRT, whatever. This is the absolute most basic necessity and need in our community, and boy, has every wart and ugliness been exposed during the pandemic about some of the long-term care home standards, both then from a capital standpoint, facility standpoint, as well as from an operating standpoint, the lack of resources, the terrible pay in many in the private sector, Mr. Mayor. And so we should be extremely proud of both Macassa and Wentworth Lodge, and led by Senior Administrator Holly O'Diarty. And this report here today, Mr. Mayor, basically says to Council, and I hope as we come out of the pandemic, society will not forget what they have learned about the state of affairs of long-term care homes and retirement homes, especially, not exclusively, but especially in the private sector, and how government-run homes have been much better off because profits do not come ahead of people in the government public sector run homes like Macassa and Wentworth Lodge. So Mr. Mayor, this is very important. I'm somewhat dismayed that the province so far has only offered up about 20% towards the nearly $28 million capital cost that it will cost to build a brand new B wing. The current D wing last was renovated about 30 years ago, has had some minor upgrades, 44 existing residents, frail elderly residents that reside there. The plan is to eventually demolish the D wing once the new B wing, if approved, is built, and the new B wing will have an additional 20 beds. So for my colleagues that may not be as familiar, and for the viewing public, so currently 44 beds in D. We're going to build a new B wing to accommodate the 44 and add 20 more. By the way, there's a waiting list of close to 2,000 frail elderly residents in our community on a LHIN's waiting list to get into a long-term care facility. So, Mr. Mayor, the 44 moving from D to B and adding 20 new beds to make it a 64-bed wing. Here's the conundrum. The province, unfortunately, will only fund a portion of the 20 new beds. For whatever technical reason, they will not help with the redevelopment of the 44 existing beds. In the past, and for all my honored years on council, about 14 years ago, Wentworth Lodge went through about a $20 million renovation. I was there with Councillor Powers at the time, Mr. Mayor, along with yourself in your first term as mayor, and the province provided up to about 50% of the funding. The municipality upfronts the entire cost and the province reimburses 50%. Macassa Lodge, the A Wing back in the mid 90s, that was about an $11 million renovation for the A Wing. The province provided almost 2/3 of the reimbursement for that at that time. And in case members of council and the community might go, well, Tom, how much, we just can't rely on upper levels of government. How much has the city done? Well, since 2010, Mr. Mayor, your city, our local council and local government have put in close to $8 million to refurbish both Macassa Lodge and Wentworth Lodge in the areas of the brand new kitchen at Macassa Lodge, a brand new generator at Macassa Lodge, and at Wentworth Lodge and Macassa Lodge, brand new door alarm systems and nurse call systems. So close to $7-8 million in the last 10 years at both homes from the levy, from the municipal levy, have been provided with no provincial funding towards those capital projects. So Mr. Mayor, to conclude, I am hoping that some way, somehow, when I read about all Premier Ford and the Ministers of Health, Elliott, the Minister of Long-Term Care originally, and now Mr. Phillips coming back, Minister Fullerton, all these 17, 18 months, all I've heard is that there's going to be oodles of money for redevelopment beds, for new facility beds across the province for our long-term care homes. Mr. Mayor, we've got to implore upon the provincial government. Councillor Pauls, I know, is going to take the lead, hopefully with local MPPs, to see if the current 20%, all they're offering towards the total 64 possible new B wing, we've got to get that back up to the 40 to 50% range. Take them up on what they've talked about, the scathing LTC Commission report, that there's so many things wanting in long-term care facilities and retirement homes. This is just unfair that for whatever reason, they only want to fund the 20 new beds. And for some technical reason, we've been told, the 44 existing beds of redevelopment will not be able to be eligible for any provincial funding. It's really a shame. I'm hoping through our continued advocacy at the political level, we can get a more favorable response and a re-review of that number. To finalize, Mr. Mayor, regardless of that, if council and the community truly cares and never ever forgets what our most senior citizens and most vulnerable senior citizens in our homes have been through in these last 17 months, coming out of the pandemic, it'll be easy to forget. I hope we never forget and say this Macassa project and this new B wing is incredibly integral and salient and important to those we care about the most in our community. Mr. Mayor, thank you for your indulgence and the extra time. Thank you.
Thank you. On the same topic, members of council, I have a speakers list. Anyone on the same topic? Okay, I'm going to go back to item 4, which is the emergency operating funding for Hamilton Arena Partners. We did have Councillor Wilson speaking on that. Anyone else speaking on that issue? Okay, so I see Councillor Jackson that you're on the speakers list, but I see Councillor Ferguson on as well. You're not on this topic, Councillor Ferguson?
No, in fact, you can remove my name. My question was to answer the previous questions.
Okay, thank you. All right, so Councillor Jackson, back to you then on item 4.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I appreciate the Ward 1 councillors' queries, and important to note, I just want to again offer, as I think my main role around this council table is, to provide some historical context once in a while. And Manager Savor, please affirm or clarify if my information is not totally accurate. But this has been since about 2006, a wonderful, successful model private-public partnership on the recreational side for our city of Hamilton with the Mohawk 4 Ice Center, dubbed the Quad Pad Arena on the East Mountain. and Hamilton Arena Partners have been a wonderful partner, transparent, upfront, most importantly, providing much needed primetime ice for user groups like old timers hockey, girls hockey, tournament hockey that just wasn't available in the other 18, 19 single and double pads that we have across our city that are all city owned. And like Manager Savor reiterated, this is again a city owned facility. If it wasn't for COVID, this partnership has been a success and would continue financially, Mr. Mayor, to continue to be a success. They've made money, we've made money, we've renewed the lease with them. Mr. Mayor, just this ruddy COVID has just caused them to be in a conundrum financially. And so hypothetically, it's important, I think my colleagues know, if they walked and just said, look, you know, we're going to leave it with our lawyers, it's over. Hypothetically, it's a city-owned facility. Like the other 1920 pads we have, the Law Fields and others, the twin pads, the Coronations, we would have to look after all the costs remaining through this pandemic. As Manager Savor said, it's all about the utility costs that still are there too, so that the facility itself isn't totally mothballed. So I just, for whatever assurances I could provide members of council from somebody who was here that strongly supported this very novel, creative model partnership 17, 18 years ago, that's been a smashing success. If it wasn't for COVID, we wouldn't be in this financial conundrum. And coming out of COVID, I can tell you, knowing Hamilton Arena Partners and the managers there, they are just so dying and eager to get back to normal and to recoup and get back to the financial arrangement and agreement and commitments they've had with the city all along. Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. On the same topic now, we have Councillor Pearson and then Councillor Clark. Councillor Pearson, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I appreciate certainly all the information on the Mohawk 4 ice pad. I'm not on ENCS, so I appreciate Chris Hurstack chatting with me with regards to the funding request, and certainly understand. But I do have to speak out in regards to a private facility in my ward, and you know the dilemma. And we all appreciate COVID has certainly affected everyone, public or private. And trying to address the concerns of a private facility in my ward that has also been affected major, and especially with the fact that they also pay property taxes in the tune to hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. And we anticipate and expect the taxes to be paid, but they too are suffering dearly due to COVID. So I just want to put that on the record. And it is Gateway Ice that I'm speaking about. So I appreciate that it is that Mohawk 4 Ice is a city facility, and I've explained that to them. But we have many facilities in the city that are not publicly owned and are in dire straits right now. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Councillor Clark.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a comment on item 4 and then a comment on item 2 if you want to come back to me for that one. It's just a question to staff. I'm under the impression that this facility and the operators provides their audited financial statements to our staff annually so that we can review to see exactly what's transpired in the previous year. Can I just get confirmation on that, please?
Yep, thank you. Mr. Savor? You're on mute at the moment. We're not not hearing you for whatever reason.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'll speak on behalf of Steve, who's having some technical difficulties. But that is correct, Councillor Clark. They do provide audited statements annually to us. Absolutely.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Hurstick. I just wanted to have that confirmed that we would see exactly what transpired at the end of the fiscal year. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Second time speaker on this, Councillor Wilson. Item 4.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Chris, or if Steve's mic is back up and running, are you able to tell me whether the private party has been in receipt of any COVID funds from the federal or provincial governments? Through you.
Whoever's viable at this point. Steve, go ahead.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, can you hear me now?
You're back. Yes, we hear you.
Apologize for that. Yes, the operators have applied for subsidized wage funding from the federal government, and that goes directly to their employees. But again, in terms of their request, this is for operating expenditures that are not related to the employees that are there. And an additional thing that I failed to mention previously that might provide a little bit more clarity as well. Our agreement with the operators has a commitment as well in terms of city allocated ice that we have not been able to satisfy in terms of the ice allocation and the revenues that we are due to the HAP. That is normally a significant amount throughout the year, and again, that is a commitment in terms of our agreement, our operating agreement. So there's close to about north of 500,000 in terms of that amount in terms of ice allocation that we are not able to or haven't been able to confirm with them.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson.
Thank you. Two more questions. I thought I read in the operating agreement, Mr. Mayor, that the private party is responsible for bringing forward an emergency plan or some sort of plan with respect to disasters or emergencies. Have they done so, and have I recalled that correctly? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Savor.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, in terms of dealing with this situation, we have been in constant contact with the operators through our facility management review team. And in terms of this entire piece, they did submit a significant back to play, so to speak, and plan in terms of how they were going to operate throughout the pandemic. So we have been in constant contact with them throughout the entire pandemic, and we do have the resources that have been submitted to us from Hamilton Arena Partners.
Thank you. Councillor Wilson.
Thank you. Is the author of the report, Mr. Mayor, able to tell me this private entity is engaged in public-private partnerships for recreational facilities across Canada, from Hamilton to the West Coast? Or is this been a best practice of municipalities? Have they, do you know, been in receipt of this kind of a deal with their other agents, public agents?
Mr. Savor.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I can't speak for the entire operations of Hamilton Arena Partners and their partners that are associated with other properties. I am aware that they do, as an organization, have other agreements and do have best practices throughout the nation. I can't speak directly to those agreements, but I am aware of those successful arrangements they've garnered not only with us but through many other organizations throughout the nation.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a few comments from me. If there are no further speakers, if there are, I can wait.
There are not.
Okay, thank you. So, Mr. Mayor, I appreciate the report, although I believe there are many substantive items that are outstanding. There's no legal analysis provided, which I would require. There's no alternative set out in the report. There's no present an account of the kind of operating expenses that are coming with a largely dormant asset. And there's no, when I reference best practice, there's no sense of, is this a practice that other municipalities are having to engage in when they have a public-private partnership during an emergency. So for all of these reasons that I would not be able to provide the answers to those residents who have contacted me, I'm afraid I will not be able to lend my support to this report. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So we'll come back to that for a separate vote so you can indicate your opposition. Councillor Clark on another item, item 2, I think you said.
Yes, sir. So item 2 is the community safety and well-being plan. Can I ask through you, sir, to our staff, will this report look into and make recommendations about supportive housing for our mentally ill?
Paul Johnson, if you're on the call.
So through the mayor, one of the priority areas, as you note, is housing and homelessness. And within the housing basket, much of the conversation was around how we keep those safe who require supports to their housing. So not just the issue of affordability, but also the issue of how people are kept safe. And so the short answer is yes, that's constantly raised as one of those needs that is not being consistently met well, that the level of support to ensure that people can thrive in housing, not just have it be an affordability piece from a financial perspective, was a source of discussion around the table. And that's very much lends itself to the collaborative nature that will have to occur if we're going to be successful in some of these activities within this plan. That is going to require additional partners, including our health partners, to be much more engaged as we look at building the housing and supporting those housing in various ways.
I'm very happy to hear that. And so my concern is that the supports for people who need help to stay in that housing, I agree the affordability aspect is a key aspect, but it's making sure that they have the occupational health and safety support, they have counseling, they're being assisted ensuring that their medications are taken at the appropriate times. All of the supports that enable someone to thrive have to be a part of that discussion. So I'm just wanting to make sure that is the case.
So through the mayor, that is the case. And in fact, in anticipation that, we're going to continue this type of work, and many people are excited about this plan, but this work is happening. We've already had a conversation about a different way of engaging partners to do exactly what you're talking about, but a bit more individualized, understanding what some of the needs are of individuals or groups of individuals that may not be fully thriving with the level of support they're receiving today, and how do we engage the right set of partners to have those discussions, not so much on a what I'll call a more ethereal basis that we need them in some general sense, but actually look at specific circumstances where people's safety and well-being is not being fully addressed by their housing needs currently, and how do we strengthen that and make it more effective.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. And the second question issue, Mr. Mayor, if I may, how are we making out? I'd raised this before that, it's an online consultation. And so one of my concerns was residents who live in Hamilton who do not have access to the internet, perhaps they can't afford it. It's not cheap. Homeless, are poor and working poor, especially during this COVID-19 pandemic. They have not had access to the internet at the library or any other private facility. So how are we doing on consulting with individuals who really, really are the folks who need the assistance and need the help of a community safety and well-being plan? So how are we doing in that consultation?
Thank you.
I'm going to ask Grace Mader to jump in with some of the specifics around what we did to this point, and also some of what we will continue to do. I will say in general, it has been more challenging, no doubt. We were in some ways a little disappointed we weren't given more time. The deadline for this plan is July the 1st, which is why it's before you today. So what we've committed to is that we did receive a fair bit of feedback to inform the plan. We feel very comfortable that the priority areas that we're working through are certainly well supported by a variety of folks, both with lived experience as well as those who live throughout the community. And what we are committing to do is continue to hone those areas of focus by some deeper engagement. But we were not deterred, had a number of different ways of going out and engaging, and I'll let Grace share just a bit of that with you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Grace?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, Grace Mader, Director with Healthy and Safe Communities, through you to Councillor Clark. We really appreciated the feedback that we received through our committee about the importance of engagement, and we went back out and we used a variety of the methods through your offices with providing information out to your in your mailings and your connections. We had a staff person assigned to do one-on-one phone calls with people so that they could feel that if they didn't want to use any other method, they'd be able to just pick up the phone and call and provide their feedback. We found that that was helpful on a number of occasions. We also see that as an ongoing basis, and we're really hoping that as we move into the next phase of implementation and developing a plan for each of the priority areas, that we'll be able to get back out, meeting with people in a more normal way, so to speak, one-on-ones and with groups in the community and that. So that will be part of our ongoing planning as well.
Thank you, Grace.
And so to be clear, my expectation is that as we move through this plan, there will be checkpoints and opportunities for the staff to reach back out to the individuals who are needing this type of assistance and service to make sure that what we had planned is actually happening and that it meets their needs. There's going to be that type of ongoing engagement.
Thank you. Grace?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, Councillor Clark, absolutely. That was the fundamental component of our plan. We're going to be looking for new working groups to establish, to hear new voices and to engage more people beyond just the advisory committee as to what our plan is going to be.
Mr. Mayor, I do want to thank the staff for the work on this. As you know, I'd raised this concern when we started this process. And even though the province had very tight timelines on this, I was pleased to hear that staff did everything they could to reach out to folks who didn't have internet service and provide the ways and means to have that engagement, and that they're committed to continuing that engagement to ensure that the goals of our plan and how we implement the plan actually meets what our original thoughts were. So I really do want to thank staff. It has been a worthy exercise. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. On this topic then, Councillor Jackson.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. If you notice, Mr. Mayor, the ECS committee may be small in numbers, but we're mighty and productive based on the discussions we're having. Anyways, Mr. Mayor, on the same topic, Hamilton's Community Safe and Wellbeing Plan, I want to commend staff, especially Director Grace Mader, who I'm going to miss this fall very, very much when she retires. But we had a number of community leaders and delegates at Councillor Nan's table this past week speak to the importance of the support for this plan. And Mr. Mayor, if I could ask for you to Director Mader, as council can see, there's the recommendation of monies to be set aside for a permanent senior project manager. And maybe Grace, you could just explain where this maybe has been shepherded between you and your fine staff up to now, but why your recommendation is for a permanent position that will not just shepherd, but will provide more continuity and overall permanent leadership as we move forward on the community safety and well-being plan. Through you, Mr. Mayor, please.
Thanks. Grace?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Jackson, thank you for the question. We really think it's important that someone have the responsibility to get up each and every day to focus on the needs outlined in the plan and the priority areas. We feel it's important that have someone has their eye on that to make sure that this is not just a plan that sits on a shelf, that this actually has a projects and an implementation strategy developed for each of the priority areas in participation with many community partners. And it will take someone to help guide that and coordinate that work, because this is not just a City of Hamilton plan by such, it's about a community plan. So it will take someone to help guide that work.
Thank you, Director Mader, for that explanation. And Mr. Mayor, I want to sincerely commend you as Chairman of the Police Services Board, because, you know, the police have taken a fair bit of criticism from certain quarters in our community when it's come to this topic. But we have, as a police board and through your leadership, Mr. Mayor, we've ensured that the police, both from within the service itself, are at the table and have been at the table for a good 20 years with programs like COAST and the Rapid Response Program for issues of mental health emergency situations, homelessness, poverty, even troubled youth. Mr. Mayor, you have ensured both the service has been at the table and as well that the governing body, we have a representative, member Mandy, who delegated last week, and she's at the Hamilton Community Safe and Wellbeing Plan table as well, along with many, many stakeholders. So, Mr. Mayor, this is wonderful, and I hope eventually every citizen of our great city will feel welcomed, safe, and secure moving forward. I'm strongly supportive. Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much. Thanks for the kind words. Appreciate it. Councilor Wilson on this topic, item 2, community safety and well-being.
Yes, thanks, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to recognize Grace's work and that of her team. In Ward 1, we held a meeting specific to the community wellness strategy, and we did it in partnership with City Labs. So we had a very sophisticated operation in terms of breakout rooms and the ability to put online post-it notes and photographs. And interestingly, there were some participants who may have started at different ends of the spectrum and how they perceived a problem, but with conversation in the small breakout rooms, in fact, they were closer together than they were apart. And the discussions about the social determinants of health and frankly, criminalization not being the real solution to most of the issues pertaining to community wellness. So I would like to give recognition to the staff and thank them very much for their willingness to help us engage on this very important issue. And I think further to the comments about wraparound services and supportive housing and our crisis with respect to mental health, I think the importance of this exercise is it brings many divergent and diverse groups to the table to talk about this. And for me, that underscores the fundamental importance of those lived experiences and those different lenses when it comes to governance. And arguably, I would say that that's why some of us are interested in pursuing this matter when it comes to health. So thank you very much again to staff for your work on this and to all the community partners who are doing the work on this. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. And if I can turn it up to Councillor Farr for just a brief moment, some comments myself. And I do appreciate the excellent work that has gone into this. And, you know, this is not intended to be a one report sit on the shelf kind of process. This is an ongoing conversation in how we make collective improvements in terms of good outcomes for citizens in our broader community. And I'm happy, and I know I'm well aware that many folks with lived experiences have been engaged in this process, as well as the cross-section of major institutions, of which police is only one. You know, this is not at the end of the day, or nor should it be a policing issue. It should be a community wellness issue that brings in many partners, as we've done through Coast and the rapid response teams, partnered with paramedics and social workers. And so that I think is an opportunity to expand and grow that sense of responsibility for all agencies to be part of the wellness and safety issues going forward. And so I'm very delighted with the broad spectrum of organizations that came together. Many individuals in our community with lived experience have had their say and their input in this, and this will not end. This will be an ongoing process, hence the recommendation to have a funded individual to continue that very important ongoing good dialogue, conversation, but action all at the same time, which I think is ultimately where we want to be. We want to have more positive actions that improves the well-being and safety of our citizens in our community. So I'm very grateful. If I had my choice, I would not allow Grace Mader to retire, but it's not my choice. Absolutely Grace's choice, and I think we'll have scant few moments to actually thank her and appreciate her for all the work she's done, especially in the housing and homelessness area through the pandemic, but in so many other areas of our city. She has been a stalwart, solid performer, has made our community better, and I just want to salute Grace Mader at this moment. There's always a great team, and I'm sure that Grace would say that the great team around her has allowed her to do all of this great work. But I want to compliment her on taking on the shepherding of this through a very difficult time. You know, pandemic time is a very difficult time to get people engaged. They're all, especially in the healthcare sector, they're all focused on getting through the pandemic. And so many of them have set some of those issues aside and come to the table and brought their ideas and their sense of responsibility to being part of our community safety and well-being. So I thank them all. But Grace has led the way, and we thank her for all of her fabulous work. And if we can convince her to stay longer, I'm happy to do that on your behalf. I see thumbs up for many folks here, so we'll see what we can do. But certainly wish Grace a happy and great retirement when it comes to her. Thank you for those moments, Councillor Farr. I'll take the chair back, and I'll come back to item 4. And there was a request for a separate vote. Councillor Jackson.
Mr. Mayor, along with 4, could I respectfully ask for all the community partners, there be a separate vote for 2, and for all seniors across the city in long-term care facilities, I ask for a separate vote on 5 as well, please. Thank you.
Okay, so let's start with item 2. So separate vote identified on item 2. Hamilton Community Safety and Wellbeing Plan. All in favor? We'll give clerks a moment to dial that in. I'm sure they weren't anticipating separate votes on all of them, but that's okay. Any opposed? Please indicate. And everyone's able to vote.
And on item 2, that carries 15-0.
Thank you. And item 4, which is the emergency operating funding for Hamilton Arena Partners, separate vote requested for it. All in favor? And anyone opposed? The vote, Madam Clerk?
We're almost there.
Okay.
And that carries 13-2. And we're going to item 5.
5, Macassa Lodge redevelopment project financing plan. All and any opposed?
Councillor Marula, have you submitted your vote?
Thumbs up from Councillor Marula.
That carries 14-0.
Great, thank you. All balance of the report then on the emergency community services moved by Nan. It was seconded. All in favor?
That carries 15-0.
Councillor Farr, a motion to rise and report from Committee of the Whole, please.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is seconded by Councillor Marula, and that the Committee of the Whole rise and report.
Thank you. All in favor?
That carries 15-0.
We're on motions. So the first motion is an amendment to item 6 of the Audit Finance Administration Committee report regarding the Winona Peach Festival request for a loan. Councillor Johnson, or Councillor Pearson, I should say.
Thank you.
Your motion.
Yep. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And this was a notice that I brought to Audit and Finance amendment here today. So if I can, I'm going to go with the committee's indulgence that we just read off the 3rd page, which is the main motion as amended. It's moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Brenda Johnson, that Winona Peach Festival request for loan to upgrade electrical service FCS 17037. Ward 10, outstanding business list item 8.3, that the City of Hamilton provide an interest-free loan to the Winona Peach Festival to fund electrical upgrades at the city-owned Winona Park in an amount not to exceed $100,000, to be repaid in full over a period of 12 years from the date of the loan advance. B, that the loan to the Winona Peach Festival be repaid with annual principal payments on the anniversary dates of the loan advance and as reflected in the loan repayment schedule attached as Appendix C, as further amended to Audit, Finance and Administration Report 17-004. C, that the long-term receivable account be established to record the loan to Winona Peach Festival on the city books. D, that any additional project expenses such as consulting, project management, archaeological studies, if required, be borne by the Winona Peach Festival. And E, that the mayor and clerk be authorized to execute the loan agreement and any ancillary documents between the City of Hamilton and Winona Beach Festival in a form satisfactory to the General Manager of Finance and Corporate Services and the City Solicitor. And if you wish just for clarification for anyone, I can add that we're all aware that the Winona Peach Festival is not holding an event again this year. This will be the second year that they're requesting the extension of their payment due of $10,000. So we're just adding, instead of the original program was a 10-year program, it is now extended to 12-year in order to incorporate the 2 years that they are missing the $10,000 payments for. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
That's great. Thank you. It's been moved and seconded. Any comments or questions on it? Not seeing any indication. Thank you. All in favor then? Any opposed? Collins approves in the chat. Everyone's able to vote. Councillor Pauls, thumbs up. Thank you.
That carries 15-0.
Thank you. And we're going to turn to Councillor Pauls now. An amendment to item 2 of the General Issues Committee report. Councillor Pauls regarding
Thank you, Mayor.
Games, yeah.
Okay, thank you. And it's moved by myself, second by our mayor. Whereas the Hamilton 100 Committee, with respect to 2030 Commonwealth Games, was put on hold while a 2026 bid option was explored. The 2030 Commonwealth Game bid is again active, and the 2026 bid is discarded. Whereas the Hamilton 100 Committee is to be renamed to the Games Operating Committee. Whereas the existing members of the Hamilton 100 Committee are to be appointed to the Games Operating Committee. Councillor Partridge has submitted a request to resign from the Hamilton 100 Committee, and the mayor has submitted a request to be appointed to the Games Operating Committee. Whereas, therefore be it resolved that the item of 2 General Issue Committee Report 19023 respecting the report PED 19108B Commonwealth Games 2030 be amended to read as follows. That as in it is council unfettered right and discretion to designate up to 4 elected officials to serve as the city representatives on the Games Operating Committee. As per Memorandum of Understanding between the City of Hamilton and the Hamilton 100 Commonwealth Games Bid Corporation, up to 4 members of council be appointed to the committee. That the Memorandum of Understanding between
Councillor
the city.
Paul, can I just kind of indulge you, because this is a long.
Yes, can I go
amendment.
to
The changes are in bold.
Okay.
And so the changes are that the Games Operating Committee name be changed, and that name is reflected in item D as well. And that the addition would be that myself as part of the overall games.
Which we're so happy.
Right. Those are the
you.
amendments rather than reading the whole thing, which I think is.
All right, so I'll go to the end then, and so you don't want me to read it all? I guess
No.
it is a long one. So.
Yeah, and it's I mean, everyone's had the amendment.
Yeah. Okay.
And so
That's fine.
it's just an addition to the to committee, and that would be myself to replace Councillor Partridge.
That's perfect. Thank you very much, and we're glad that you're on the committee. So thank you.
I'm joining you. Thank you very much.
Great.
Any comments on the amendment? Seeing not, seconded by myself, actually.
Yourself, yes.
Yep, Councillor or Madam Clerk. All those in favor then on the amendment? for the amending motion? And thank you, Councillor Paul.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, thank you.
I'm sure you would have read it with this.
I was tired of hearing myself as well, so thank you.
Mr. Mayor, that carried 15-0.
Thank you. And we have item 6.4, Councillor Vanderbeek, a motion respecting a proposed underground tunnel on concession 4. Go ahead, Councillor. Having a little trouble hearing you, so for whatever reason, your mic or your volume, one or the other. Can't quite hear you yet.
Okay, let's try that. Is that better, Mr. Mayor?
That is better. Yep, thank you.
I can't hear you for some reason. Okay. Thank you, sir. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Nan that that the item 3 of the Public Works Committee Report 19-014 respecting a proposed underground tunnel under Concession Road 4 West in Flamborough, that was report PW 19082, be approved. The long and the short of it is that they were asking for one single tunnel for two-way traffic, and it has been determined that they need to have two tunnels, one tunnel with a barrier in the middle, so that the trucks can come and go at the same time independently. And that's basically what this is. So I assume that everyone has it. It was on the agenda, and I'm hoping that you'll approve it. Thank you.
Right, and so the functional, again, changes are in therefore be it resolved, the approximate height and then the proposed underground tunnel is item 3A. For those that are looking, any comments or questions on the amendment? Not seeing any. Thank you. All in favor then of the amendment? Thank you, Councillor Vanderbeek. Everyone's able to vote? Anyone need to do a thumbs up?
That carries 14-0.
I'm going to turn to notices of motion, and we have a notice of motion from Councillor Partridge regarding the manufacturer limited liquor sales license. Councillor Partridge.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. And this is time sensitive. It is the issuance of a manufacturer's liquor license, sales license, which is by the glass for the Carlisle Cider Company. So I would like to waive the rules.
Right.
If I can get someone to second that. Councillor Ferguson, thank you. Well, all of council, thank you.
All right. Moved by yourself, seconded by Councillor Ferguson. Let me just get to the waiving of the rules.
Thank you,
All
sir.
those in favor of waiving the rules? Please. I vote. I have some reasonable confidence that that's going to be waived.
That carries 14-0.
I knew it. Councillor Partridge.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. So this is with regards to support for the issuance of a manufacturer's limited liquor sales license, which would be by the glass for the Carlisle Cider Company. Whereas Carlisle Cider Company is operating at 1453 Millborough Line in Carlisle, and whereas the Carlisle Apple Farm has been operating since 1904, and in 2020 opened their cidery facility, and whereas in addition to brewing apple cider, the business model has a retail, tourism, and educational component, and whereas, excuse me, the Alcohol and Gaming Commission of Ontario, the AGCO, requires written notice from the Council of the municipality within which the applicant site is located, confirming that it has passed a resolution in support of the issuance of the by the glass, which is for tastings, liquor license sale. Therefore be it resolved that the Council of the City of Hamilton confirms their support for the issuance of a manufacturer's limited liquor sales license, which would be by the glass, for Carlisle Cider Company, at 1453 Millborough Line in Carlisle. And I'm hoping everyone will support it, please.
Okay, thank you. Any questions or comments on it? Not seeing any. All in favor then? Elec already opposed and hopefully approved.
That carries 14-0.
Thank you.
Mayor, if I may, just a quick question for clerks, please. What is the next step in getting the required paperwork to the Carlisle Cider Company, please?
Thank you, Madam Clerk.
So they'll be getting a copy of the council resolution that they can proceed.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Clark, regarding a peer review of land needs assessment methodology. You'd like to waive the rules, sir?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, this is incredibly time sensitive, as our intention is to have the reports coming back from staff on the MCR in October. And in order to have this report inform that work, we need to get it moved today. So that I would move, and if seconded by yourself, I believe, sir, that the rules of order be waived to allow for the introduction of a motion respecting the peer review of a land needs assessment methodology.
Thank you. Any comments or questions on that? To a vote then, thank you. All in favor of waiving the rules? Vote is up. And
And that carries 14-0.
thank you very much. Councillor Clark.
Thank you, sir. And it's moved by myself and seconded by Mayor Eisenberger. Whereas the City commissioned land economist Anthony Laureus Consulting to undertake the technical analysis for the land needs assessment for the city's Grids 2 initiative. Whereas the results of that analysis were presented to Council on March 31st, 2021 in the report City of Hamilton Land Needs Assessment to 2051 Technical Working Paper and Residential Intensification Market Demand Study as part of the report PED 17010. And whereas Council will be considering the land needs assessment and recommended Grids 2 growth scenario at a special GIC meeting on October 25th of 2021. Therefore, be it resolved that A, that staff be directed to retain a consultant with the appropriate expertise in land economics and planning to undertake a review of the approach and methodology utilized for the City of Hamilton Land Needs Assessment to 2051 Technical Working Paper and the Residential Intensification Market Demand Study to confirm that the approach and methodology meets the requirements of all applicable provincial policies and is an appropriate application of all applicable provincial policies with respect to determining the city's land needs to 2051. B, that the consultant prepare a memorandum summarizing their findings, that staff can include this memorandum as a part of the Grids 2 report back to the special GIC meeting on October 25th, 2021, and that the cost for completing the review be charged to the Economic Development Investment Fund Reserve 112221. I'll speak to it very briefly. During that March 31st meeting, when we heard from Laureus and the presentation, we heard from a number of residents and some being experts within planning and within the community, that the interpretation of the provincial policies could have been different, that they disagreed with Laureus's interpretations. In my discussions with the mayor and a few other councillors, I was concerned that that was left hanging, and I think we should really have a peer review of that Laureus report so that we can ensure that there are no issues as we move forward in October. That would be my comments, sir. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. On that then, Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, if I could start with a couple of preliminary questions, just so I understand some of the basics to Mr. Thorne. I'm trying to, in my mind, discern approach and methodology based on dictated provincial policy, and that which is used by a professional statistician or social scientist with respect to assumptions. does Mr. Lorius in his work identify the set of assumptions that guided him in conducting his work?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Jason? Mr. Thorne?
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor. And if it's okay, I'm going to turn my camera off because my bandwidth is not great. So Jason Thorne, General Manager of Planning and Economic Development. So yes, within those two reports that are referenced in the motion, Mr. Lorius does define his methodology and the assumptions that are being used. In some cases, the work is informed by some foundational provincial documents and provincial studies. So in those cases, those would be referenced within those two reports that he prepared for the city.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor, through you to Mr. Thorne, just so I understand the difference then between methodology and assumption. So my recollection in the land assessment work is that Mr. Lorius sets out some statements having to do with the housing preferences of people as they get older, 80 and beyond. Is that something that is set out for him in provincial policy, or is that an assumption he makes in his methodology?
Thank you. Mr. Thorne?
So through the chair, in terms of what the province defines, so the province has set out, and this is this is a little different for grids 2 than it would have been many years ago for grids 1. That the province actually does define a land needs methodology, which is what municipalities must utilize for the purposes of calculating lands needs and performing each municipality's land needs assessment. So that is the foundational methodology that guides the work. It does speak to some broad terminology around a market assessment and market demand and those sorts of things. So there is some provincial guidance there that then Mr. Lorius would have defined in terms of how that would apply in the Hamilton market.
So if I could just, thank you, Mr. Thorne, just see clarity on that last part. The province sets out the methodology for Mr. Lorius to use and apply per a particular municipality?
Through the chair, so the province sets out a land needs methodology that all municipalities must follow.
Okay. To your knowledge then, Mr. Thorne, I'm looking forward, and if you could enlighten me on when would this peer review conclude its work and be submitted to the municipality? Estimate.
Yeah, so through the chair, so we've not approached anybody yet to do the work, so I can't say with any certainty. My guess is it will take a bit of time to identify someone who's able to do the work and complete it through the summer. I would hope that by the time we get into early September, we would need to have the results back by that time so that we can incorporate them into our reports that we're developing for the October GIC. What the motion states is, in addition to staff being able to review whatever comes back, we would include something directly from the peer reviewer and attach it to whatever report we bring forward in October so that council can see directly from the peer reviewer what their opinion was.
Okay, thank you. The last time this subject matter was discussed, I believe at the end of March, I'm trying to discern the so what, meaning what if the peer review came back with, it concluded that some part of the methodology, for lack of a better word, might be a bit sketchy. What are the implications of any conclusion that part of a methodology might be questionable? Like, how would that inform the work coming forward?
Thank you. Jason?
So through the chair, I would suggest in two ways. I mean, certainly staff will look at whatever comes back and whether what comes back suggests that there should be any modifications or revisions to what has been completed to date on the lands needs assessment. But I would also suggest that the motion suggests that this peer review work will be presented direct to council, and ultimately it's council at the end of October that's going to need to make that decision and determine how confident and comfortable you are with both the staff recommendation, the work of Lorius, the work of whatever the peer reviewer comes back. We of course have a lot of feedback from the public coming in right now through the survey that's being done. So I would suggest that all of that will be before council at the end of October for you to make whatever determination you will.
Okay,
Okay,
thank
I
you.
have if I have one time for one final question, through you, Mr. Mayor, to Mr. Thorne. Do we know how many municipalities have employed Mr. Lorius for their exercises? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Jason?
Through the chair, no, I wouldn't be able to speak to how many municipalities have used Mr. Lorius. I do know he's one of the principal consultants in the province in this field, but I wouldn't be able to say how many municipalities he's worked with.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Jackson?
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Can I ask through you to General Manager Thorne, there's absolutely no cost attached to this motion. Through you to the General Manager, please, what would the cost be?
So through you, Mr. Chair, like I said, we've not actually approached any consultants yet to be able to get a firm sense. So I can give you my best ballpark, and I'd say we're probably in the neighborhood of about 25,000. I would think something in that range, but I wouldn't be able to give any certainty until we actually ask for some quotes.
Okay, and you've got enough funds within the economic development to cover the cost, General Manager?
So through you, Mr. Chair, yes.
Okay. Mr. Mayor, just a political comment. I supported the tabling of the staff strong recommendation of the ambitious density option back in late March, but I supported the tabling, even though I was prepared to move on the staff recommendation with the Anthony Lorius studies behind it. I also supported doing citywide surveys, and again, heartened by the fact that so many wanted traditional opportunities for Canada Post mailouts, in-person town hall type meetings. Hopefully, if we all get double dosed between now and October, etc. I supported that. I'm not sure what this peer review is going to accomplish with taxpayers' money, because it sounds like to me that it is basically saying, look, Lorius has provided all this in spite of all his professional studies and best recommendations up through staff, our professional staff that I admire enormously, from Director Steve Robichaud, Chief Planner, right on down through his managers that were part of the authoring of this report, have recommended a certain option. All that tabled, I'm strongly supportive of as much community feedback over the next 6 months. But on top of that, well, you know what? We're not quite sure about Lorius, and we just want one more opportunity to have another consultant provide a peer review. So, Mr. Mayor, respectfully, I'm going to vote against this, and let's keep mindful of the fact of what the minister provided in a communication to us about a month ago. Absolutely no extension of time till July of next year for the municipality to provide their land needs assessment and how they're going to move forward to accommodate growth. And if it's not done by the municipality, and I get that there'll be some certain sectors of our community that will want no boundary expansion. I'm not getting ahead of the debate, but I'm just saying that if that's the case and the municipality ultimately decides to just keep things in a state of abeyance, Mr. Mayor, eventually the province will decide and dictate for us, and that would be a shame and unfortunate. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Ferguson?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just through you to Jason. Jason, do you support this? Is this going to put us at risk on getting this report done on time? I'm surprised it didn't come from staff. It was that critical. So your comments, please.
Yeah, so through you, Mr. Chair, the way the motion is written, no, it should not jeopardize the timelines. It does state that this work would be done and brought back in time for that end of October decision, which I think staff has noted a couple times. It is important that we stick to that timeline of making those decisions at the end of October. So, no, I don't believe it jeopardizes that timeline. And I would say in terms of the undertaking of a peer review, I would say staff has done a fair bit of work in this area. We have worked with Mr. Lorius, who's a fairly well recognized consultant, but I certainly recognize this is a pretty big decision that council's going to have to make at the end of October. And so if there's interest in making sure that you have full confidence with an independent review of the methodology, then I would say as staff sees no harm in that, if that's something that will help council make a pretty important decision.
So do you support it?
Through Mr. Chair, I've got no concerns with having the methodology reviewed, no.
Okay, thank you. That's all, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Johnson?
Yeah, thank you. And I support this. I just wanted to, because it was raised earlier, the citywide survey through you to Mr. Thorne Can you please, for the public record, assure the, especially those in Ward 11, that it is in fact citywide, and that includes Glanbrook, because that's one of the things that was put on social media, that it was Hamilton and not Glanbrook. And I tried to tell everybody Glanbrook is a part of Hamilton. So could you please, for the record?
Through you, Mr. Chair, yes, it is citywide. I would just note that, you know, it does get distributed over a number of days, so not everybody's going to get it on the exact same day. So I know that some have received it already and some have not, but that is to be expected the way Canada Post does the distribution. But yes, it will be citywide.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you. If I could ask Councillor Farr to take the chair for a moment. You know, I'm happy to second this, and you know, this direction, this land needs assessment, and the overall grids process is one of the major decisions this council is going to make on behalf of our citizens. And we are in the habit of doing peer reviews, quite frankly. All the major contracts that we have done in terms of private sector, by and large, we've done peer reviews, whether it's the airport and other agreements that we've done. We've often employed not to second guess everybody, and not to suggest in any way, shape, or form that someone hasn't done their job. It is more to confirm some of the methodology and assumptions, and or debunk them. And you know what? I think that's a worthy exercise for us to undertake, given the impacts of this very important decision that we're going to make. So I would say I'm very supportive of the peer review process. I think it's an important thing to do, subject to, you know, making sure that it gets done within the reasonable timeline. And I'm with you know, everyone here that does not want to extend the timelines. There's a decision point to be made. Lots of information will be on the table. Lots of input will be generated in the broader community, and we've seen that already, and certainly all appropriate. And so doing that peer review in terms of testing is not an unusual step. Certainly not unusual for big significant issues like this. So I fully support this, and I think Councillor Clark, we talked about this quite some time ago and followed through on you know, the sooner the better, because if we don't do it now, then we won't be able to get it fit in the appropriate timeline. And I have no doubt that can be done given the timelines that we're working on. But it's certainly an important step to take to ensure that we get the proper, correct confirmation, and or potentially, you know, highlighting areas that might not be as strong as the consultant that comes in and peer reviews this might like. So I think it'll be a very helpful, useful tool for council. It doesn't become the overriding tool, but certainly becomes one of the tools that we can utilize to inform our decision making going forward when we deal with this in October. I thank Councillor Clark for bringing it forward, and I'm going to take the chair back. Councillor Farr, thank you. And first time speaker on this, Councillor Partridge, and then I'll go to Councillor Clark.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I do support this as well for, you know, basically all the reasons that have been stated. But I do have a question, and I may have missed it, so I do apologize. If I could, through you to Jason Thorne. Jason, how was the survey being mailed out? Was it going to all the addresses through the tax system, or was it being done by postal code? Could you just confirm that, please?
So through you, Mr. Chair, I might have asked Steve Robichaud to clarify. It was done through a Canada Post a mail drop, so it goes out similar to the way you know, flyers and advertising would be distributed. But I'm not sure if Mr. Robichaud can elaborate on that.
Steve Robichaud, Chief Planner, City of Hamilton. Mr. Thorne is correct. It is being delivered on household physical location. So an absentee landlord would not receive a copy of it, in the sense that it is not using the assessment data in terms of the property owner's mailing address. It is going to the household address. We have made arrangements for those individuals who want to have a copy of the survey or to complete it, and that do not reside in Hamilton, that they can contact staff, and we will work with them so that they can complete the survey, and we will record their results accordingly. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the explanation. The concern I have with the mail drop is that there are several residents right across the city in the outlying areas. I know I have, I think about 170 up on Campbellville Road, where their address is actually out of the Halton post office. in Campbellville, so they don't get anything unless it goes to their Halton Halton address. And, you know, likewise, we have some in Kirkwall, we have them all around where their addresses are actually Quitlange. So I just have a bit of a concern about that. I've been heavily promoting it in my monthly newsletter. But, you know, as I understand from the explanation, it's just been mailed out not too long ago. So I'll wait to hear from that. But you know, this is I mean, this Hamilton's a big city. we're going to be even bigger in you know the distant future of 50 years from now, which is going to come quite quickly. And we got to get this right. We've absolutely got to get this right. And to me, a peer review may bring a different perspective. It may just put a little more meat on the bones that we need to be aware of and to consider. It's going to be a lot of information coming forward for us, but you know, this council, we've got to get this vote right. This is a very big one. So I thank Councillor Clark and Mr. Mayor for bringing it forward. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Clark, second time.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And to Councillor Partridge's point, I think the staff should be able to pull the records of the mail out that was requested through Canada Post, because each of the forward sortation codes, the LOR, L8J, et cetera, so those should have been captured for the communities in Waterdown that fall into Halton and fall into Puslinch. And they should be able to confirm that for Councillor Partridge. So if staff could look into that for her, that would make sense to me. With regards to the peer review, a peer review, we as a council, we have requested peer reviews on many different planning documents and many different applications. I can recall at least 3 peer reviews in Upper Stony Creek for the landfill impact needs assessment that was done for different developments that would be in close proximity to the landfill. Even though we had all the experts saying there's not an issue, we as a council wanted to ensure that an independent third party reviewed that document to provide the advice to council before they made the final determination to approve those projects. And so in my mind, it's the same thing here. Mr. Lorius is a professional land economist. I'm sure he has had documents peer reviewed in the past. He would expect peer reviews. It's not unusual to request peer reviews of such documents that have such a wide and dramatic impact on the future of a municipality, such as the land needs assessment that we are conducting here. I reiterate, when we heard from the delegates, we heard a number of them that took exception to the interpretation that was applied to the methodology by Mr. Lorius. And to not respond to that by an independent third party to look at it, we would leave that hanging out there, and it would come up again in October. So my concern is I'd like to have that review done so that I can have comfort that we've checked every box, and then we can make the decision informed by that peer review and informed by Mr. Lorius's report and informed by the staff report, which is the normal process. So I'm with the mayor on this. I think given the magnitude of this decision, a peer review is most appropriate. Thank you, sir, and I thank you for seconding it, and I thank Mr. Thorne and Mr. Robichaud for working with me on the development of the wording of the motion. It was most appreciated.
Great, thank you. Councillor Vanderbeek.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, I'd like to thank Councillor Clark and yourself for bringing this forward. I can tell you as a matter of course, we peer review simple things like noise studies. We peer review things for planning development applications constantly. I think it behooves us to peer review this so that the public can know that where a peer reviewer agrees or disagrees with the methodology, perhaps not, but with the results. Sir, I'd also like to ask that when staff are checking the addresses and providing them a confirmation for Councillor Partridge that they do that for myself too, because I cannot send to my ward a mail out unless I send into Cambridge and send into Puslinch and send into the wards on either side of me, because I can't narrow it down. So I would like to make sure that the people along Gore Road and the people who live up in the north end of Flamborough are receiving this survey, because keeping in mind that many of them are rural and they do have strong opinions about giving up rural land, and they do want to know exactly how we're determining what that decision is at the end of the day in October. So I will definitely be supporting this, and I would appreciate staff getting back to me on the addresses too. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. So I'm sure Steve will confirm for both of you and others, if they're concerned, just exactly how the postal code delivery system has gone. And I'm rest assured that there aren't any gaps, but we'll give you that confidence for sure. On the motion, as put forward by Councillor Clark, seconded by myself, all in favor? There it is. Any opposed? I didn't hear any abstentions. Madam Clerk.
And that carries 12-1.
Thank you. And we're going to turn now to our council communications updates. Can I have a motion to approve the communications updates, please? Moved by Jackson, seconded by Councillor Danko.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, are you skipping statements by members, item 8?
No. But I did jump by it, but let's
You
do
did,
the
yeah,
communications
just a
in
little.
any event, and I'll definitely go back. So on that communications vote, all in favor? And we are going to go to statement by members, and Councillor Wilson, you're first.
That's carries 13-0.
Thank you. Councillor Wilson.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, last time I didn't have my mic off, and now I can't seem to turn it on. Thank you. Speaking of land needs and urban boundaries, just one quick public announcement. In Ward 1, we will be having a community meeting on this subject matter to discuss the survey, its importance, what it means, and staff will be supporting the meeting, and I appreciate that very much. This Thursday at 7:30, I believe there's more information available on the Ward 1 social media platforms, including maureenwilson.ca. So I would encourage all members of all residents of Ward 1 to attend. The significance of this issue, it's financial, it's environmental, it is social, and it is something that we all need to wrap our heads around and have some discussions about consequences as well. So I hope you will join me this Thursday at 7:30. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Farr.
Just a happy summer to everybody. And on this today, I'll be getting my second shot at FOC in about 4 hours time. Have a safe one, and do what you can to get vaccinated fully and as soon as possible. Have a great summer, everybody.
Great, thank you, and congrats and good luck. Councillor Nan.
Thank you. Through you, a couple of announcements. One is this Thursday at 6:30, Hamilton Urban Core Community Health Center is hosting their second community meeting, an opportunity to meet the new neighbor who is moving in at 430 Cannon Street East. They will be covering off consumption treatment services, as there's a lot of misunderstanding out in the community about these services and the role role that they play in supporting the journey of individuals moving from their addiction towards recovery and being able to positively contribute back into our communities. So an opportunity for folks to learn more about what consumption treatment services are and also to have their questions answered. So that's happening this Thursday. It is occurring virtually. You can get information about how to log into the meeting either via computer or by phone. I have posted that information on both of my social media platforms. Also coming up next week on Tuesday at 6:30, the Ward 3 office is hosting Good Shepherd as well as City Housing Division to provide a community update on the temporary shelter that is currently in the former Cathedral Boys School to give residents an opportunity to hear not only about the update as it relates to operations of this temporary shelter and why it's so needed in terms of shelter capacity overall citywide, but also to hear a little bit about some of the good news that's come out of this incredibly important work during this pandemic. The number of individuals who've been permanently housed is quite remarkable, and I think that it's an opportune time for folks to understand, though there are some neighborly concerns, that there is actual outcomes that are resulting from this that will be much more systemic in nature. So it's an opportunity for residents to ask questions and hear more about that and get clear about the timeline coming up. That is happening Tuesday, June 29th at 6:30. You can email the Ward 3 office at ward3@hamilton.ca to RSVP for that meeting. Again, also virtual by video and with phone-in options. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Councillor Collins? Okay, Councillor Jackson.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I want to wish all my constituents a very happy Canada Day and happy birthday, 154th birthday to Canada. Mr. Mayor, in spite of all the pain and the warts and any ugliness of the past, and especially to Indigenous peoples, which I empathize and am truly angry as well in support of them. But however, Mr. Mayor, I will continue to say publicly that this is just the best country in the world overall. And without its founding in 1867, to bring two peoples, two nations together, French and English, that opened its arms to refugees, like my Armenian ancestors, my father an orphan because of the Armenian genocide, losing his parents in 1915, and to my wife's Polish family that were fortunate enough to escape Nazi-occupied Poland. If it wasn't for this great country of Canada and its open arms that was founded in 1867 and allowed a multitude of refugees and other immigrants to come and start a new home here with nothing but hope, opportunity, and hard work. Mr. Mayor, the ancestors on my side and my wife's side could easily have faced persecution and death. So thank you, Canada. Happy birthday, Canada. And thank you for all the freedoms we enjoy in still the best country in the world, in my opinion. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Very well said. Councillor Danko.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Nothing from me today. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Partridge.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. And this past weekend, we've had so many grad parades throughout Waterdown and Flamborough and across the city. It's just been absolutely uplifting and wonderful to see how many of our graduates, they've dressed up in their prom dresses and they've put on their best bib and tucker and their suits and just had wonderful celebrations, decorating cars and trucks and parading down the street. I also want to mention that we have 100 Women Who Care Flamborough that have raised about $8,000 for the Eagle's Nest women's programs here in Flamborough. This Thursday, just a reminder to everyone across the city, please, it is the Transportation Truck Route Master Plan from 6 to 8 p.m. It's a virtual meeting. Please jump on and have your say. It's a very important meeting. I also want to mention too that Cobb's Bakery in Waterdown, we're doing a check presentation on Thursday. They've raised $5,000 for the Waterdown Food Bank, which I'm very, very grateful to. And this past weekend was a busy weekend. We had just a wonderful multi-faith, peaceful walk through town. There was about 100 people, everybody social distanced. We met at Memorial Park. And it was a touching tribute and a memorial for the family that was murdered in London. But more importantly, there was such a diverse group of people from all different faiths, all different walks of life. There was so much love and support. It was just absolutely incredible to be a part of it. And I really appreciated them extending the invitation to myself. There were no speeches from politicians, absolutely none. We didn't want to politicize it. It was strictly from the people who organized it, the Muslim community, and a couple of others. I want to thank Maharen and Sonia and their spouses for bringing the community together and organizing it. It was really very, very touching. I want to say Happy Canada Day. I want to say God bless to everyone and God bless Canada. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Vanderbeek.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a couple of things. I congratulate the grads, those who are graduating not just from secondary school, but from elementary school and heading off to secondary school. I want to remind people that the farmers markets are on in Rockton and Dundas every Thursday until October, and Thursday afternoons, and so I hope that they'll be able to attend and support them. Just to say a happy Canada Day, and hoping that people have a safe and happy summer. Thanks, sir.
Thank you. Councillor Ferguson.
Yeah, two things. Number one is I got the survey yesterday about the urban area boundary issue. And I'm a little concerned about it because it certainly leads you to orange ticking option 2, which is no urban boundary expansion scenario. Because option 1 is option 2 is intensification. And I really think there was no real explanation on it other than it'll go to 70 persons and places per hectare, and nobody will understand that, what it means. So why would they vote for taking down farmland? I know in Ancaster, intensification is very, very sensitive. They don't like the high rise. They don't like people packed in. And it's leading you, because of not having a knowledge of what intensification means, to certainly support option 2. So I just want to put that out there, that it's going to be difficult when trying to find the right word. It's probably going to be slanted a certain way because of the way it was asked. It's like the Quebec referendum, would you support resolution number such and such, and without having an explanation of what it means. So I just put that out for thought. It's too late. The survey's gone. But when I read it, I thought, oh my goodness, this thing's going to be overwhelming in favor of intensification, which will be very sensitive to my community. And second of all, I got my second shot last Wednesday, so another week, my 2 weeks will be up and I'll be fully vaccinated and we're off to the races. So I'm very grateful for that. And have a happy summer, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. I didn't know the races were on, but I'm happy to hear that. That's good. And congratulations, by the way. I think, again, the folks that are working at all of our vaccination clinics that was mentioned earlier on are doing such a fantastic job. And I know lots of people have anxiety around getting a needle and around the entire COVID issue, of course, as we, all do to some degree. And they've done terrific work. And I think I hear that from just about everybody that's gotten their first and second dose. And I assume the same was for you.
Yeah, just on that, I had no side effects to it. I was concerned because a lot of people say they're very tired the next day and have a sore arm. I had nothing, and went off and chaired AFNA last week, and I wasn't grumpy at it, I don't think. And so it was a great success.
No more grumpy than usual. No, just kidding. Yeah, so and lots of people have different kinds of reactions. It's different seemingly for everybody. So that's not beyond normal. So that's great. Thank you, Councillor Ferguson. Councillor Johnson.
Yep, thank you, Mr. Mayor. And on that thought, both Glenn and I had our AZ shots back in April, and we had our second shot on Sunday. My husband came out of it with flying colors. However, I think this is the first time I've been awake for more than 4 hours. So yeah, it hits people different ways, but either way, I would have done it all over again just to get that second shot. So I have three announcements, sir. One of them is the Glenbrook Conservation Committee is in partnership with the MPCA, have embarked on an ambitious project of planting 5,000 trees and shrubs this year in naturalizing portions of the Glenbrook Conservation Area. Over 3,000 trees and shrubs have already found a home because of over 40 volunteers. But this Saturday, June 26th, they have over 800 more plants to put in the ground, and they need more volunteers. So please go to my website, brendajohnson.ca, to volunteer. The second announcement is Pembroke Farmers Market is up and running every Saturday from 9 o'clock to noon at the Pembroke Fairgrounds. Come on out and support local farmers. Remember to eat local, you eat fresh. And lastly, congratulations to the Mount Hope Community Christian Reformed Church and volunteers for collecting 1,601 pounds of food, which was taken directly to the neighbor to neighbor. Especially in these times, people are still coming together as a community, and I couldn't be more proud. And just wanted to say hello to my friend Jana, who's watching. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Pearson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I might touch on what others have mentioned, but I too want to thank all the grads who have graduated this year from kindergarten and up, and certainly see the signs around in the ward. So I want to congratulate them all. It's been difficult for them again this year, and hopefully things will be back to normal next year. Also want to mention as a reminder about children, I try and remember mention every year this time. Please be careful. Kids will be out there playing in their neighborhoods, so please drive safe. I will be very honest in saying I'm very pleased with the 40-kilometer zones that have been implemented in Ward 10 so far. I've had a reduction of complaints regarding speeding in the areas where the signage has been installed, and 3 more areas are coming in Ward 10 this year. So that's 6 zones now that are being signed, 40-kilometer neighborhoods. I'm really pleased with that. I too want to thank Councillor Partridge for mentioning the truck route master plan. I encourage people to please sign in. It's Thursday night, tomorrow at 6 p.m. There's a lot of great information and a lot of updates that will be provided by staff. I know through Ward 10, I've been encouraging and working with staff to remove the truck route access on the north side of the QEW because the very large amount of residential development has been going on. So that will be on the table tomorrow's reviews and information. I appreciate that. I am going to mention as well that I am getting a lot of calls with regards to an increase in ticks this summer, an increase in coyote sightings, and now red fox. I encourage residents to just be careful, be safe. Unfortunately, there's nothing we can do about the fox and the coyotes. They live amongst us. They're in their habitat as well. And with regards to ticks, they're all over the place, Mr. Mayor. It's not even long grass anymore. It's all over the place. So the need to protect oneself is very, very important. And I also just want to add Happy Canada Day to everyone and a wonderful summer I wish to everyone going forward. Hopefully the weather will continue to be as nice as it is right now. I appreciate it. So certainly thank you to everyone, and safe and happy summer.
Thank you very much. Councillor Clark.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a couple of quick announcements. The movie production of Chucky, Dark Windows will be filmed on Highland Road East on Friday, July the 9th. They've requested a road closure on Highland Road from Tapleytown Road to 5th Road, 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. on July 9th. Residents, businesses will have access to the driveways, local access only. And the production staff will be canvassing the neighborhood to answer any questions. So that's kind of cool. The next one is many of my colleagues have talked about the surveys being mailed out. So the How Should Hamilton Grow to 2051 surveys should be arriving in your Canada Post mailbox this week. I encourage residents to use the postage I can't even speak today. This is terrible. Postage paid card and mail before July 23rd. So you got to get it back by the deadline of July 23rd. Your options are to vote for the ambitious urban development, no urban expansion, or provide your own suggestions. I encourage residents to engage with council on how Hamilton should grow to 2051. And to the staff, I want to thank them. I thought the mail out was excellent, and there were the explanations that were necessary to inform the residents before they make a decision. Item 3, construction season. please be careful when driving through the many construction zones in Ward 9. Slow down. Fines are increased in the construction zones. Follow the signage, stay to the right of the yellow line, follow the safe directions of the stop and go signs, and be patient. I have seen drivers, Mr. Mayor, actually drive down the wrong side of the street trying to get ahead of the traffic. And I'm concerned that there's going to be a serious accident if that continues. People really simply need to be patient. I know we have a fair amount of construction in the ward with the Mud Street Bridge, Paramount, the Rymel Road widening, and 6,000 meters of sidewalks being replaced. But if everyone just slows down, watches for the workers and pedestrians, we will get through this next 4 months safely. And finally, on fireworks, I'm urging caution to residents who are setting off much larger than normal fireworks in their backyards. My office has received reports of hot embers and parts of the fireworks actually landing on homes, wooden decks, and in pools. So just take a moment and think about the potential risk to your home and your neighbors when you're firing off those large cannons. And I want to wish everyone a joyous, happy Canada Day when the weekend comes. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Great, thank you, Councillor. And let me do the same. Let's continue to celebrate Canada Day of today and work towards building the Canada of the future, as we all would want to do. But I think, as someone has said already, I think Canada is one of the countries that the world looks up to, that is progressive and multicultural and diverse, never perfect, but certainly striving to be. And I'm very, very proud of being a Canadian. And so we'll continue to celebrate that. I do want to congratulate all of the graduates out there and families. You know, difficult time this past year and a half to be in school and to, especially to graduate. You know, we can all remember our graduation day from various elements of whether it's high school or university or college. And, you know, there are always kind of in many instances, kind of life-defining moments where you build great memories and you forge lasting friendships and on a personal basis. And that certainly was very, very difficult to do this past year and a half for all of our great students out there. And you know what? Compliments to the teachers that equally have had a challenging and difficult time managing all of that through this process. So hats off to all the graduates out there. Thank you for continuing to work towards your education in challenging times. And I know days are going to get better for you and all of us as we continue to ramp up our vaccination here in Hamilton. And the good news on that is we're almost 72% vaccinated first dose and 26% and climbing quickly on the second dose, and that will certainly hold us in good stead. It doesn't mean that we can throw away all caution. I think there's still reason to be cautious, but certainly there's reason also to be optimistic that we're closer to the end of this than we are to the beginning. And so better days are ahead, and certainly the weather is much improved and gives everyone a lift as we go forward. So everyone have a happy, fantastic summer. We will meet in early July, and we'll meet again in early August. So no one here is taking the summer off, but summer is upon us. That's right. No taking the summer off for any of you fine folks. But many in our community will be taking vacations, and hopefully they'll enjoy them as they may not have been able to enjoy them the last couple of years, whether it's staycation or going somewhere else that's now going to be open, or visiting some of the great assets that we have that will hopefully be accessible to the vast majority of our community in due time. So enjoy your city, enjoy your summer, and congratulations to all the graduates. And thank you, members of council, for your good work. And I'm going to turn to a bylaw to confirm our bylaws, which is going to be put forward by Councillor Farr. So Councillor Farr, if you would, bring forward that motion.
Absolutely, that the June 23rd, 2021 bills be passed and that the corporate seal be affixed thereto and signed by the mayor and the city clerk, seconded by Councillor Ferguson.
Perfect, thank you. That's exactly the way it was scripted. Thank you. All in favor of the bills and bylaws? And while we're waiting for
And that is carried 13-0.
take a motion to adjourn, moved by Councillor Pearson, seconded by Councillor Ferguson. All in favor, your last duty for today in terms of council meeting. And thank you very much for an excellent meeting. Have a great rest of the day.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, thank you.
We will,
Bye,
start
everybody.
soon.
That
Bye-bye.
carries 13-0.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And
Mr.
thank
Mayor.
you, clerks. Good job.
So long, folks.
Have a great day.
Thank you, everyone. Good job, Mr. Mayor.
I hope you're feeling good, Tom, after your shot.